So in this video, I want to talk about something called feedback inhibition. So first of all, just to describe what we're seeing in this slide. Here we have a chemical, a reactant that we're going to call reactant A. This might be something that is in your diet, like something that you've taken a lot into your body of. And in your body, you want to turn reactant A into end product F. All right. So what your body is going to do is, instead, there's no way to change A into F in one step. So to turn A into F, so let's say you've eaten a lot of A, but what your body really needs today is F, molecule F. Now, you can turn A into F, which is what you're going to need to do, but you can't do it in one chemical reaction. You have to do a series of reactions where you turn A into chemical B, and then you turn chemical B into chemical C, C into chemical D into chemical E, and finally chemical E into chemical F. This process where you change something stepwise from one thing to another is called a metabolic pathway. You may have heard of this before. There are many metabolic pathways in our body because you don't eat every single thing that you need. You eat certain things, and then your body has the ability to turn those things into the things that you need, but you can't do all that in one step. You have to make all these different intermediates to get from A to F. All right, so this is a bunch of chemical reactions: A turning into B, B turning into C, C turning into D, D turning into E, and E turning into F. And each of these reactions requires its own enzyme to happen. So if we look at the top here, E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, this is telling you that each step has its own reaction. Enzyme 1 is not the same as enzyme 2. Enzyme 2 is not the same as enzyme 3. Enzyme 3 is not the same as enzyme 4, etc. You need 5 different enzymes because there are 5 different reactions that we're going through here. To turn A into B, you need enzyme 1 to help. To turn B into C, you need enzyme 2 to help. To turn C into D, you need enzyme 3 to help. And the reason you need to have all these different enzymes is that each enzyme has its own specific active site that the substrate can fit into, because A is a different shape than B, and B is a different shape to C. So you have to have a different enzyme with a different active site shape to accommodate all these different substrates to turn them into all the different products to get to F. So we have a lot going on to start with, right? So on the top of the diagram here, we see a picture or a diagram of what enzyme 1 looks like. So this enzyme here, we're showing it in greater detail up here at the top, all right? And on the left side of enzyme 1, we can see the active site of enzyme 1. I know it's the active site because the reactant, which is A, obviously fits in here. There's a nice curvy part here of this reactant, and it's going to fit in the active site of enzyme 1, right? So reactant A is the substrate for enzyme 1. Enzyme 1 will take reactant A into its active site, do some modifications, and out it will come as product B, all right? And then B becomes the substrate for enzyme 2, and on down the pathway. All right, so in your body, you've just eaten a lot of A, whatever A is, and your body is busy turning it into F by all these steps because your body is lacking F right now and it needs to have F. And so you keep doing this, you keep doing this, you keep doing this until you have made enough of end product F. So as you make F, you're going to make all these Fs. These are supposed to be hexagons, they're not very good. So most of them, they're going to be taken away and used wherever they need to go in your body. But eventually, you won't need F anymore. You will have made enough F for today, or whatever it is, and F will eventually start to back up. It will start to build up because you've made enough of it. And when F starts to back up, like I'm drawing here, it gets to hang out in the same area as all these other enzymes, and F will accidentally or find its way into bind to enzyme 1, right? We see it down here. Here's a picture of it going on down here. right? Here, a molecule of F has found its way and stuck to enzyme 1. And you can see here, when F is sticking to enzyme 1, it is not blocking the active site, but it's stuck at a place away from the active site, but it's caused the active site to change its shape. This is an example of non-competitive inhibition. It's like we talked about in the last video. So F is acting as a non-competitive inhibitor to mess up the functioning of enzyme 1. All right? Okay, so we've got F now stuck to enzyme 1, and enzyme 1 active site has been changed. And if this happens, can A fit into enzyme 1? No, it cannot. It doesn't fit anymore because the active site has gotten changed. And if A can't fit into enzyme 1, then we can't make B. And if we can't make B, we don't have anything to make C from. And if we don't have C, we can't make D, blah, 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 blah. And we don't have F being made anymore. So what's really smart here is that F, when you've got too much F, it's able to turn off its own production by blocking the first step in the pathway. That's what we're seeing right here. Because reactant A can't fit in enzyme 1 anymore, we can't get this pathway going, and therefore we're not going to make F. And that's good because we got enough F. The reason F went in there in the first place and stuck to enzyme 1 was that we had too much hanging out and it was sticking to the enzyme rather than getting taken away and used for what it needed to be used for. This process is called feedback inhibition, where the end of the pathway feeds back to the beginning and closes the whole thing down if you don't need the end product anymore. And there is lots of different pathways in your body that are controlled this way. It's super efficient. It stops your body from making too much of anything that you don't need anymore. And it turns off the pathway right at the beginning. Don't even bother going down and making B, C, and D because we don't need F, so just turn the whole thing off, block the first enzyme. All right, so that's what's happening here. It's called feedback inhibition, super common, really smart, really efficient way to control what metabolism your body is doing so you don't overproduce things. Here's an actual example in real life using real names of things. So here we have the initial substrate at the top. It's called threonine. This is an amino acid. And your body has the ability to turn threonine into isoleucine, which is the end product down here. This is another amino acid. So really what you're doing here is changing the R group on an amino acid. So maybe you've got a lot of threonine in your diet. You don't have enough isoleucine, so your body can take the extra threonine and turn it into isoleucine. Right? Handy. All right. And you can't do this in one reaction. It takes 1, 2, 3. In this case, it's another pathway with 5 steps. They're not all 5, but this example happens to have 5 steps. So you turn threonine into intermediate A, they haven't even given the name, and then into B, and then into C, and then into D. And you can see you've got different enzymes for every step of the way until you get D turning into isoleucine and you're done. Then if your body has enough isoleucine, it can then turn off this whole pathway because isoleucine sticks to enzyme 1. And in this case, it says an allosteric inhibitor. This means it's actually a competitive inhibitor. So isoleucine can actually sit in the active site of enzyme 1 where normally threonine would go. And so if isoleucine is sitting in there, because there's enough of it, it will stop threonine from going in there and result in the whole pathway grinding to a halt. So this is an actual example of how feedback inhibition works in your body.